They said he was a man of routine. 3 times a day, every day, the old rancher would walk the same path, up the same hill, carrying the same tin coffee cup. No one knew why. No one dared to ask, until the day the secret behind that walk changed the history of Hollow Creek forever. His name was Silas Boone, a man seemingly built from dust, grit, and heartbreak. He came to the West when it was still wild, still bleeding from its birth. His land was hard, his cattle fewer than the lies the town told about him. But Silas didn't care for talk. He cared for the land, for his animals, and for a single promise he could never forget. Every morning, as the sun cracked the horizon, he'd walk up that hill with his coffee cup and look toward the east. He'd stand there, silent, hat in hand, whispering something under his breath. The ranch hands thought he was praying. Some said he was just talking to the wind. But the truth was far heavier. Years ago, that same hill had witnessed fire and gunsmoke. Back then, Silas wasn't an old man. He was young, proud, and full of fight. He had a wife, Mara, whose laughter could make even the barren prairie seem to bloom. Together, they carved a life out of nothing, until one summer evening, when a gang of men, desperate from drought, came riding for water, and left the land drenched in blood. Silas had gone to town that night for supplies. When he returned, the ranch was nothing but ashes, the well poisoned, and Mara was gone. He buried her there, under the hill that still watched over his land, and from that day on, he walked. 3 times a day, every sunrise, every noon, and every sunset. He never missed a single one, no matter the storm, no matter the season, for 30 years. One afternoon, a stranger came riding in. He was young, like Silas once was, dusty, desperate, and carrying the look of someone running from their past. His name was Eli Ward, the same Eli who'd later become a legend in saloon tales from Dakota to El Paso. But at that moment, he was just a boy with a busted saddle and nowhere to go. Silas offered him work mending fences, herding cattle, simple chores. Eli noticed right away how the old man would vanish 3 times a day. At first, he just figured Silas was stubbornly stuck in his habits. But one noon, curiosity got the better of him. He followed the old man up the hill, quiet and respectful. What he saw froze him. Silas was kneeling beside a small, weathered wooden cross. In front of it was his tin cup, filled not with coffee, but with fresh water. Eli stepped forward and asked softly, "Sir, why water the ground when nothing grows here?" Silas looked up, his eyes dim but sharp with something unbreakable. He said, "Because once I failed to bring her water, and now I'll never let her thirst again." That night, thunder rolled in from the west. A storm was coming, the kind that makes both men and cattle uneasy. Silas didn't sleep. He just sat by the window, watching lightning crawl across the plains. And when dawn came, so did something else. Riders. It was Beaumont Clay's gang. Outlaws who'd been tearing through the county, taking land from old ranchers too weak to fight back. Eli woke to the sound of hooves, shouting, and gunfire. Silas was already outside, shotgun in hand, standing at the edge of his porch. "Get down, boy," he muttered. "This ain't your fight." But Eli stepped right beside him. "Seems like it is now," he said, pulling his own pistol. The two men fought side by side, one young, one old, defending the land that held 30 years of pain and love. The air filled with smoke, the crack of thunder, and the roar of gunfire echoing across the valley. When the dust finally settled, the gang was gone. But so was Silas Boone. He'd been hit, a bullet through the chest. Eli found him at the top of the hill, where he'd always gone, the tin cup still clutched in his hand. He tried to lift him, but Silas just managed a weak smile. "Don't waste your strength," he whispered. "The land remembers, even if men forget." He reached for the ground, pouring the last of his water into the soil beside the cross. And as lightning flashed one last time, the rain began to fall. For the first time in years, it rained. A real soaking rain. In that moment, Eli swore he saw something. Just for an instant, a woman standing by the cross, her hair lifted by the wind, smiling at Silas as if welcoming him home. When the rain stopped, Silas was gone. Days passed. Eli buried him beside Mara, under that hill. But he didn't leave. He couldn't. Instead, he rebuilt the ranch, plank by plank, fence by fence, the way Silas would have wanted it. And every morning, noon, and dusk, Eli carried that same tin cup up the hill 3 times a day. Just like Silas, years later, the ranch became known across the frontier. Travelers said the soil there was richer than anywhere else in the valley. They claimed the grass grew faster, the cattle thrived, and even in the harshest droughts, the well never ran dry. Some say it was just good water, but others whisper it was love that nourished the lander promise kept. 3 times a day, long after the man who made it was gone. And if you stand there now, on that lonely hill under the golden western sky, you can still see 2 crosses side by side. And sometimes, if you look closely, you'll see a young man leaving a cup of water between them before walking back down to the ranch below. A simple act, 3 times a day, that changed history not by force, but by faith. Because sometimes the smallest routine can become the loudest legacy, and love doesn't always end when the story does. If stories like this touch your heart, subscribe to Wild Tales. Storytelling where every legend still rides through the dust, and every whisper of the West finds its voice again.